1580 103.3 WPKY. Good morning. Time is 8:31. We are joined by Princeton Fire Chief this morning, Brent Francis. Good morning, Brent.
Good morning.
Thanks so much for coming in.
It's my pleasure.
I hear you want to talk to us about fire safety today.
Yes, with the holidays coming up, we've got Thanksgiving just right around the corner. And so our goal for everybody is to get through the holiday season without any tragedies. It's a happy time. Everybody's excited about the holidays, but there's always a few folks that experience a tragedy through the holidays. And so anything we can do to try to lessen the numbers of people that suffer a tragedy through the holidays is something we like to try to do.
So what makes the holiday more prone to fire incidents?
Well, we've got a lot of activities going on outside the norm. There'll be a lot of cooking going on for Thanksgiving. That may be the only time. Some folks will try to deep fry a turkey maybe once a year, and it's can be a fun time, a good family time, but it also can be a hazardous time when we're doing those things. We don't do that regular, and we have a lot more activities that we're involved in. And while we're talking about turkeys, we'll go ahead and talk about deep frying turkeys. One of the largest fires we had in Princeton was a result of a frozen turkey being put in superheated grease. And everybody out there that doesn't deep fry that often may not realize that cooking oils, you've got a thermometer that you need to put in the cooking oils when you are going to deep fry. And there'll be a red mark on your thermometer, usually around the 450 degree range, which is telling you don't need to get your oil any hotter than where the red mark is, usually around 450 degrees. If you get your oil hotter than that, you run the risk of smoking your oil or burning your oil, and then that'll ruin your cooking. But then if you go past that and you get close to the flash point of the cooking oil, then you run the risk of having a fire. And a lot of times the weather's cool. People like to deep fry inside their garage or under a shelter, and that can be dangerous in itself. If you do have a fire, if you're in the garage, then or inside a structure, then you can wind up setting that structure on fire as well. And you have to make sure that your turkey or whatever you're going to cook and deep fry is thawed out completely, and as much of the moisture is gone off of it as can possibly be gone, because everybody knows what happens if you put water in superheated oil. And you can get on the internet and you can watch several videos of people dropping frozen turkeys into superheated cooking oils and the explosion and fire that results from that. And I'd recommend, if you're going to do that, maybe you take a look at some of those and where you can avoid an incident like that.
And so I guess I didn't really think about, I've never deep fried myself, and I didn't think about, we've heard the horror stories. Hopefully everybody's heard that by now. Don't put a frozen turkey in the oil. Hopefully we've got that message across after the first year they came out and everybody was exploding them. But I guess I didn't really think about drying the turkey first. Well,
you want it as dry as possible, and then I'm not an expert cooker. I don't deep fry turkeys, but I would think you'd want to put the turkey in the oil before the oil gets so hot, myself, because it's just so dangerous to put something like that in superheated oil. We get distracted. Everybody multitasks all the time. We turn the oil on, we turn around to do something else, let it start warming up, and then before we know it, it's gotten hotter than we thought. And if you don't have a thermometer in the oil, you have no idea what the temperature of that oil is. So if you can't find your thermometer, you can buy those. They're not very expensive, but would highly recommend nobody try to deep fry without a thermometer in the oil, so you can keep an eye on how hot that oil is. Because if you get that oil up to its flash point, which is in some cases, it depends on the oil that you're using, But if you get that oil up to 600-700 degrees, 800 degrees, then it reaches its flash point where the vapors that are coming off that oil at that point are flammable. And you've got a burner right underneath. They're heavier than air. You've got a burner underneath the pan. And that's what gets folks in trouble. If they get that oil hot enough to reach its flash point, then that oil, as you'll see in those videos if you go to the internet, that oil will act just like gasoline or any other combustible vapor once it gets to a certain temperature. And then everything is out of control. The garage is on fire. You can be seriously injured as well as burn the garage or your house or anything else down. And so it's very dangerous to cook with superheated cooking oils like that inside the structure with a propane burner underneath it. As long as you pay attention to it, you understand what's going on, you have a thermometer, you don't let your oil get too hot, everything will be fine like it is year after year after year. But it only takes one time. Get distracted for a little while, get the oil too hot, and then we can have a tragedy.
Right. I wonder if you could do a fire safety class on how to properly deep fry a turkey. Well, maybe not this year, but maybe before Christmas, because people probably will bring them back out at Christmas time.
It would be a very handy thing. University of Kentucky Extension Office, that might be something that they could be better at than I would be at. But
maybe you could partner
that and pressure cookers. A lot of times people use pressure cookers, and most everybody's grandmother has a story about a pressure cooker. Usually, there have been advancements in some of the more modern pressure cookers, but again, I think sometimes folks don't realize, and very seldom do we read the directions on something, what's going on with a pressure cooker. And I know my family, there's no better roast and potatoes and carrots than come out of a pressure cooker, but I've also seen the roast potatoes and carrots splattered all over the ceiling too. When the lid got taken off the pressure cooker too quick and there was a pocket of water that was above 212 degrees, in the pan. And when the atmosphere hits that superheated water, if it's above 212 degrees, it's going to vaporize, and that's what blows all the roast and potatoes out of the pressure cooker all over you and the ceiling. And lots of people have been hurt a long time ago anyway with pressure cookers. And it's a great way to cook. Food cooks a lot faster because the water is hotter, but the only way you're keeping that water liquid is under pressure above 212 degrees. And if you take that lid off, and if there's any part of that that's still 212 degrees, then it's going to convert to steam, and it's just like you put a grenade in the pressure cooker then, and it's going to blow it all over you and all over the ceiling. So they're very dangerous if you don't understand, and you try to take a shortcut with them and wind up getting hurt.
I've never personally used a pressure cooker either. I did not. I would not have thought about that. If I'd have gone to use one, I wouldn't have thought, there's certain steps you have to. I probably would have read directions first and got educated myself before I started using one. But wow. Yeah,
that's always a real good idea, is to read the directions on anything before you start trying to use it. Just like your cooking oils, it'll tell you don't get them above a certain temperature. And but a lot of folks, when it comes time to cook, maybe the thermometer, they can't find it, or maybe it's not working. They won't take the time to go get another one. And so you're kind of in the dark then at what temperature your oil is at. And we can get in trouble pretty quick. I know one story of a person trying to deep fry their turkey in their garage, and they got distracted. The oil got too hot, wound up catching on fire. They had their plastic turkey decoys in the rafters. Well, they melted their plastic turkey decoys down into their Thanksgiving turkey.
Oh, wow.
So that was kind of after it was all over and nobody got hurt and the garage was put out, that was a little bit of ribbon going on over cooking the plastic turkey decoys in the rafters. But that's just how fast we can get distracted when we try to multitask and forget about something, or don't realize that the time has been a little longer than we thought. And so we just have to really pay attention, and I would recommend that people move their deep fryers outside and not try to do that in the garage.
Do you see more, because in my head I'm thinking, Thanksgiving Day, everything is chaotic. I do the cooking at my house, and I'm, running around here and there, and sometimes usually my kids will help, and I'm barking orders to everybody, what I need them to do, and then I'm running back and forth basting turkeys and doing all this. Do you find that, and in my head I'm sitting here thinking, I bet it's more men that are doing the deep frying, and so they're going in and watching the game, and like you said, getting distracted and forgetting, and that's
probably true, and that's dangerous in itself. That the guys are doing it, but if you think about it and you understand the potential of what can go wrong, and you just make sure that oil doesn't get too hot, or you don't put too much oil. A lot of times people put too much oil, and they don't realize how much space the turkey's going to take up when they put it in there, and they overflow the oil out of the pan. Well, it runs right down to the burners, and if it's already, like say, super hot, if you've already got it up there at the 400 or even beyond where it's supposed to be, 450 or 500, then it's not that far from being ready to catch fire and burn. And so that's what, if there's a little bit too much moisture, if part of it's still frozen, that's the same principle as a pressure cooker. If you have any water get in the bottom, get underneath that oil, and it converts to steam, and then it'll blow every bit of that oil, superheated oil, out of that pan all over you, all over the garage, and then with the propane burner underneath, it's game on then.
Yeah. So I'm sitting here, like I said, I don't have experience with the deep fryer, so I don't really even know what it looks like. So explain the design to me.
Well, it's a big pan, usually a big aluminum pan that sets on a little metal grate that has a propane burner attached to a 20-pound cylinder usually, and you light the propane burner under the grate, and the pan's sitting on that grate, and it's just I don't know how many quarts, but it's plenty big enough, to fit a whole turkey in, and that's what you have to be careful, is getting any water in that superheated grease out of that turkey, and letting that water convert to steam inside that oil and belching it out of the pan.
See, because I'm thinking, just from your description, that scares me to even try something that has oil mixed with propane and
yeah.
men.
All the ingredients are there. that's right. And so it's just can be dangerous, and a lot of times we've gotten by with it, for a lot of times, and we've almost had issues. But like I said, it only takes one time. And, there was a good insurance commercial that comes on, may have been Allstate, I don't remember for sure, where they are talking about how many people burn their garages up every year trying to deep fry turkeys across the country because we don't understand, or we don't get it thought out. We're in a hurry, we're rushed, nobody's got enough time, and we think, it's thought out enough, I can put it in there. And so they risk it, and then one year there's just a little too much frozen turkey, and you wind up with a disaster.
I'll tell you what, we're going to take a break, and we'll be right back, and we're going to wrap this up, and we're going to go back over those tips on how to have a safe deep fried Thanksgiving turkey this year. 1580 103.3 WPKY. Good morning. Time is 8:47. We've been talking to Fire Chief Brent Francis today about fire safety during the holidays, and we've gotten into a major discussion about using deep fryers. And so what is the takeaway from this conversation?
The takeaway is understand what you're doing. Make sure you have a temperature gauge for your oil. Do not get your oil too hot. Put your deep fryer outside. Don't put it in the garage. And pay attention to it. Don't go off and leave it. Don't be distracted. Don't multitask while you're trying to deep fry. And hopefully you'll have a very delicious holiday with uneventful, and we don't have to pay you a visit while you're cooking your Thanksgiving dinner.
So you say don't multitask. So ladies, stay on your minute. Nag them. If you're going to let them deep fry, nag them to stay there and monitor it.
Monitor it and keep an eye on the temperature of that oil, and don't get it too hot. I mean, the majority of the folks never have an issue, but like I say, it only takes one time to have that issue. And with everybody busy, everybody multitasking, kids running around a lot of times, it's a dangerous time for them to reach up and grab a pot handle on the stove and pull it off on them. Keep those pot handles turned to the back where small kids can't reach them. Touch the glass on the stove. That's another thing that kids will do a lot of times. Or somebody will fall over a child, maybe not realize that a child's behind them in the kitchen, and they're going, like you were talking earlier, you're going back and forth. You got all kinds of things going. You got pies and cakes, and you're cooking in multiple places, and people have tripped over small children and fell on the stove, or reached out and burnt their hands, or knocked a pot off the stove on them and the child. And children really don't need to be in the kitchen while all the cooking's going on, especially small children, because it's just a very dangerous place and for them to be. And candles are another thing through. A lot of folks use candles when the weather starts turning cool, and at Thanksgiving as well as Christmas maybe is a bigger holiday for the candles. But again, not going off and leaving candles. I know I had candles burning just the other day and got down to the very bottom, and I picked it up to blow it out. Well, the bottom come out of the candle and left all three of the wicks sitting there in the liquid burning on the table because I didn't have it in a dish. It just pulled the bottom out of the candle and left them burning there on the table. And but if you're forgetful, if nothing else, write a note, put it on the door to remind yourself to blow the candles out before you leave, because people will sometimes forget because they don't burn candles year round. They'll forget they had some candles lit. They'll go off and leave them burning, and or go out of that room and leave candles burning in a room that's unattended. And when they burn down so low, even if they're in a glass container, if they get down to the very bottom, sometimes the glass will bust from the heat of the fire, of the candle. We've had that happen before, and let the burning wick flow out when it breaks the glass. So don't try to get every ounce out of that candle like I was doing. When they get down low, throw them away and get another candle so you don't have an issue.
So do as you say, not as you do, huh?
That's right. That's right.
That's an interesting message to hear from our fire chief here today.
Yes. Oh, I've done all these things everybody else does too. I've gone off and left candles burning. That's why I know how dangerous it is. I almost burnt my wood shop up one time. Went off and I thought I had the candle blowed out, and it wasn't. Come back in the next morning, it was all melted down. The wick was sitting there in liquid on my wooden miter saw table, burning the next morning still with liquid wax all the way around it on the wood table. So yes, it can be very dangerous if you accidentally forget to blow them out or think you got it blowed out and you didn't. And so candles can be very dangerous.
I guess I'm very forgetful myself, so I guess that's one thing I should be thankful that I have, pretty bad sensitivity to smells, and I'll get headaches and stuff if I burn candles, so I don't do it very often. So I guess I could be thankful for my whatever you want to call that, my issues. Good
common sense too, and involved in a lot of it, and maybe we can be back for Christmas and talk about extension cords and things like that. But There's a reason why an electrician doesn't wire your house where you can plug 25 items into one outlet.
They don't?
So
it's not wired for that?
That's right.
Maybe we should talk about that.
Yeah, we'll talk about that again later.
Brent, we thank you for coming. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I think that's it. Everybody have a safe Thanksgiving.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Fire Chief Brent Francis, and talking about not deep frying your turkeys the wrong way this year. Let's do it safely and correctly this year.